People will say, do you keep a notebook? And the answer is, I think a writer's notebook is the best way in the world to immortalize bad ideas. My idea about a good idea is one that sticks around and sticks around and sticks around.
What you just saw was the worst writing advice I've ever gotten in my life. And it's from the best writer to exist in this generation. Now, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I've been reading his work since I was a kid. On Writing is single-handedly one of those memoirs and those self-help books that has changed my life. I owe a lot to this man. But this piece of advice that he gave at the UMass Lowell University, one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. Now, when you're a young budding writer, you take these words from writers to heart. You want to be the Stephen Kings, you want to be the Ernest Hemingways. This is why I feel like a lot of people attribute tragedy to art, because they see these artists that they look up to leading these horrifically tragic lives, and they want to emulate that so they can be that good. What I did wasn't as extreme, but it was in the same vein. When I heard Stephen King say that writing your ideas in a notebook is the only way to immortalize them as bad ideas, I threw away all the notebooks. The point that a good idea will stick around no matter what stayed in my head. And I would have great ideas about characters, stories, poems, short stories, things when you're doing mundane tasks that would fill up my imagination, I wouldn't write them down. Just because Stephen King said it. Initially, I thought that this experiment would work. When I would finally sit at the end of the day to write, the ideas that were supposedly lingering in my head wouldn't be there anymore. I mean, I'd scramble to figure out what I was thinking about at the time, trying to retrace memories, basically walking back through the day to figure out what I was thinking at that exact moment. Sometimes I would succeed, but 7 out of 10 times I would not. Now, I took this advice to heart for years. I mean, I wanted to be as good as Stephen King. So whenever the opportunity came, an idea struck, I wouldn't write it down. I would do other things to try to remember it. I would say it out loud. I would tell a friend. I'd text someone, which is kind of cheating because it's still writing it down. After many years of deliberation, I finally gave up. It was too much. I was losing too much. For me, when I write poetry, it's all inspirational. So it has to be in the moment. Many times I've been driving on the highway and I pull over to write down what I just thought. That's how poetry arrives to me. But I would always feel guilty because I was like, Stephen King said not to do that. Maybe this poetry is trash. And that's on me. That's not on Stephen. But I finally gave myself permission to start writing my ideas down again. The number one thing I saw was an uptick on these YouTube videos. The fact that I had an idea of a YouTube video, I could jot it down with the title and basically revise my title when I was writing the scripts. That gave me a sense of direction. I knew what I was going to say. The next thing that changed was just my writing in general. I would have a great idea for a short story. I jot it down in my notes. I come back home and I can write that. I have a starting point. I don't have to stare at the blinking cursor because I don't know what to write. And I'm relying on memory for an idea to come back to me that it probably won't. Now, I'm pretty sure this does work for Stephen King. He's a prolific writer. He writes like 2 novels a year. So it's definitely working for him. But I don't think it works for everybody. And if you want to take my advice, write down your bad ideas. Write down all your ideas. Because what'll happen is that you'll develop enough editing powers to know which ones are going to stick and which ones aren't. And there's something to be said about writing a bad story but finishing it. You got to get the gunk out of the faucet before you can get any clean water. Having those moments of just writing, you have an idea, it struck you, and you're finishing that, that's more important than not exercising bad ideas. Other artists that I look up to, like Chris Martin and John Mayer from the music space.
Often I have a title in my head.
Did you jot it down?
Yeah. I have a list of titles all the time.
In your journal?
Yeah.
Book?
On my phone, actually.
They write on their phones. They have titles, they have ideas, they have lyrics. They try to incorporate them into songs that they were working on for years. It's a good tool to have. And if you've learned anything about the second brain, you know that writing down is the #1 asset that you have. Ever since I started researching about the second brain, that's all I do. Note-taking apps, journaling, all of that is done to solidify ideas that you've had. Now, it's like I said, at the end of the day, it's your job to edit them and refine them, but it's always good to write them down. I hope this video helped, guys. This is one of those things I really wanted to talk about for a while. I love Stephen King and I love everything he's ever written. There are also moments where you have to disagree with your favorite writers, and this is one of them. This video has amassed a large audience. People love this lecture from Stephen King, and I just don't want people to think that this is the end-all be-all, just like I did. If you guys enjoyed this, if you guys want to support the channel, definitely click on the links below. I have my poetry collections down there. I have my newsletter down there. I have my Patreon down there if that's something you're interested in. Let me know what other videos you guys want to see from me, and thanks for sticking around. Cheers.